I'm 74 years old, and I want to tell you something most people won't say out loud. I worked my whole life, and it wasn't worth it. That sentence still feels strange coming out of my mouth, because for decades, my work was my identity. It was how I measured my worth. It was how others judged me. It was how I convinced myself my life mattered. From the outside, I did everything right. I studied hard. I got the job. I climbed the ladder. I stayed late. I sacrificed weekends. I missed birthdays. I postponed vacations. I told myself the same lie everyone tells themselves. This is temporary. I'm doing this for my family. One day it will slow down. But it never did. When I was 25, I said I'd relax at 30. At 30, I said 40. At 40, I said once the kids were older. At 50, I said retirement. I blinked, and suddenly I was old. Nobody warns you how quietly your life slips away. There's no alarm, no announcement, no moment where the universe taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, this is the part you'll regret." It just happens. I remember one night clearly. I was 41 years old, sitting alone in my office at nearly midnight. The building was empty, the lights were harsh. My phone buzzed. It was my daughter's school play, a photo from my wife. She had played one of the main roles. She was smiling on stage, looking straight into the camera, as if she was searching for me. I wasn't there. I stared at that photo longer than I want to admit. Then I locked my phone, opened my laptop, and went back to work. That moment still follows me. Back then, I didn't feel guilty. I felt responsible. I told myself I was being a good father by providing. That missing one night didn't matter. But here's the truth nobody tells you when you're young. Life doesn't take everything at once. It takes it slowly, one small compromise at a time. One missed dinner, one canceled trip, one maybe next year, one I'm too tired, one after this project. And then, one day, your children are grown, your parents are gone, your body hurts in places you didn't know existed, and the only thing you have plenty of is memories. I spent over 35 years chasing something I thought was security. Money, status, recognition. I thought if I just worked harder, I'd finally feel safe. But safety never arrived. The goalposts kept moving. The expectations grew. The pressure increased. And my life outside of work slowly shrank. I didn't notice it happening. Nobody does. That's the danger. Work gives you a false sense of progress. Every promotion feels like growth. Every raise feels like validation. Every compliment feels like proof that the sacrifices are worth it. But work will always take more if you give it more. It has no finish line. And when you finally stop, it doesn't remember you. I retired at 67. There was no applause, no standing ovation, just a short email, a handshake, and a farewell lunch where everyone talked about upcoming deadlines. I walked out of that building for the last time and realized something that hit me harder than any failure ever had. My job didn't need me, but my family did. And I wasn't there when it mattered most. That realization doesn't come when you're busy. It comes when things go quiet. In silence, the truth gets loud. At night, when there's no work to distract you, your mind starts replaying moments you can't redo. The conversations you rushed, the people you took for granted, the years you told yourself didn't matter. I don't lie awake thinking about deadlines. I lie awake thinking about people. The friend I lost touch with, the vacations I postponed until someday, the hobbies I abandoned because they weren't productive, the moments I chose work over life. And here's the hardest part. I can't go back. Time doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about intentions. It only cares about actions. You don't get extra years for working harder. You don't get refunds for regret. You only get one life, and it spends itself whether you pay attention or not. When people talk about hard work, they rarely talk about what it costs. They talk about discipline. They talk about sacrifice. They talk about doing what others won't. But nobody talks about what slowly disappears while you're busy being productive. I didn't notice it at first. At the beginning, work felt exciting. I felt important, needed, useful. People asked for my opinion. My phone rang constantly. Emails piled up. Meetings filled my calendar. I mistook that noise for meaning. Every time I said yes to work, I was quietly saying no to something else. No to dinners that turned into leftovers. No to conversations that turned into quick updates. No to weekends that turned into recovery days. But because it happened gradually, I didn't feel the loss. That's how it tricks you. You don't wake up one day and say, I'm choosing work over my family. You say, just this week, just this month, just until things settle down. They never do. I remember my son once asked me a question that still stings. He was about 10 years old. I had promised to take him fishing that Saturday. Saturday came, a client issue came with it. I told him we'd go next weekend. He didn't argue, he didn't cry, he just said, okay, you're always busy anyway. That sentence landed harder than any insult I've ever received, because it wasn't angry, it was resigned. Children don't complain forever. At some point, they stop expecting. That's when you've already lost something you can't get back. I told myself I was doing it for them, that the money would give them opportunities, security, a better life. And yes, money helps, but here's what nobody admits. Money replaces stress. It does not replace presence. You can't buy back missed years. You can't outsource connection. You can't delegate love. As my career grew, my life outside of it quietly shrank. Friends stopped calling as often. Invitations slowed down. Family events became optional in my mind. Work trained me to believe that everything was urgent, everything was critical, everything needed immediate attention. Life doesn't shout like that. It whispers. And when you ignore whispers long enough, they fade. I used to believe balance was something you achieve later, that once I made it, I'd have time for everything else. Here's the truth I learned too late. Work expands to fill the time you give it, and then it asks for more. There was always another target, another quarter, another competitor, another reason to push harder. And every time I reached what I thought was the finish line, it moved. I wasn't chasing success anymore. I was chasing relief. Relief that never came. You know what finally forced me to stop? Not wisdom, not reflection. My body. At 58, my doctor told me my blood pressure was dangerously high. At 60, my sleep was broken. At 62, I needed medication just to function normally. I laughed it off. Occupational hazard, I said. But my body was keeping score long before my mind was ready to listen. Stress doesn't announce itself loudly. It accumulates quietly. Late nights, skipped meals, constant tension, always being on. You convince yourself this is normal. It isn't. I watched colleagues retire early, not by choice, but by force. Heart attacks, strokes, burnout that left them hollow. Some didn't make it to retirement at all. One man I worked with for years died 2 months after he finally stopped working. Cancer. At his funeral, people talked about his dedication, his work ethic, his legacy. His wife sat in the front row, silent. That image stays with me, because dedication sounds noble, but it doesn't comfort the people you leave behind. Here's another lie we tell ourselves. They'll understand. We believe our families will understand why we weren't there, why we missed things, why we were tired, why we chose work. But understanding doesn't erase absence. Children don't remember why you weren't there. They remember that you weren't. Partners don't remember the reasons. They remember the loneliness. And you don't realize how much distance you created until you finally have time and don't know what to do with it. When I retired, I suddenly had empty days. No meetings, no deadlines, no urgency. I thought it would feel like freedom. It felt like disorientation. I had built my entire identity around being busy. Without it, I didn't know who I was. That's a dangerous place to be. If your worth depends entirely on your output, what happens when the output stops? I had to relearn to be present, how to listen without checking the time, how to enjoy moments without measuring productivity. Those things don't come naturally when you've spent decades training yourself to prioritize work, and that's the cost people don't talk about. Work doesn't just take your time, it reshapes how you think, what you value, what you ignore. By the time you notice, the damage is already done. If you're listening to this and you feel a little uncomfortable, that's not an accident. Discomfort is the warning sign I ignored for years. You still have time to listen to it. I wish I had.
There's a moment that comes later in life when the noise finally stops. No meetings, no deadlines, no urgent emails, just silence. Most people think that's peace. It isn't. Silence is where the truth waits. When I first retired, I told myself I had earned it. Decades of work, decades of stress. Finally, time. But time feels very different when you don't know what to do with it. I woke up one morning, sat at the kitchen table, and realized nobody needed me. Not urgently, not professionally. That's when the illusion broke. For years, I believed money was proof of value, that providing was the same as loving, that security could replace presence. It can't. Money's useful, but it's a terrible substitute for connection. I gave my family comfort, but I didn't always give them myself. And comfort fades, presence stays. I remember a conversation with my wife a few years after I retired. We were sitting on the porch, watching the evening settle in. She said something quietly, almost casually. "It feels like I lived with a stranger for a long time." She didn't say it with anger. She didn't accuse. That made it worse, because she was right. We had shared a house, but not always a life. I was physically there many nights, but mentally somewhere else. Work doesn't end when you leave the office. It follows you home, into conversations, into weekends, into bed. And slowly, the people closest to you adapt to your absence. They stop waiting. They stop asking. They build lives around the gaps you leave. That's when loneliness starts. Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind. The kind where people are around, but you don't feel truly known. I used to think loneliness came from being alone. It doesn't. It comes from being disconnected while surrounded by people. After retirement, I had time to think about the past. Too much time. Memories don't come back evenly. They come back with weight. Not the successes, not the awards. Those fade. What stays are moments that never happened. The conversations I postponed, the apologies I didn't make, the affection I assumed was understood. I told myself my family knew I loved them. I didn't need to say it all the time. That was another lie. Unspoken love doesn't age well. People need to hear it, feel it, experience it. I was good at planning for the future. Retirement accounts, insurance, investments. I wasn't good at living in the present. And the present is the only place life actually happens. Here's something nobody prepares you for. When work ends, you're left alone with yourself. No titles, no roles, no constant validation. Just you. If you've been avoiding parts of your life, they show up then. Regret doesn't shout. It sits beside you quietly and asks questions you can't answer. Was it worth it? Who did I become? What did I trade away without noticing? I had enough money to be comfortable, but comfort didn't fill the empty spaces.
I had freedom, but I didn't know how to use it. That's the cruel irony. You spend your healthiest years working for a future version of yourself who may not have the energy to enjoy it. I wanted to travel more, but my body was slower. I wanted to start new hobbies, but my habits were rigid. I wanted deeper relationships, but I had spent decades avoiding emotional vulnerability. Work had trained me to stay guarded, efficient, controlled. Those traits don't translate well into intimacy. I saw friends go through the same thing, men especially. Retirement hit them like a loss of identity. Some drank more, some withdrew, some filled their time with meaningless distractions. Very few talked about how lost they felt, because nobody teaches you how to transition from being needed to simply being. I don't say this to scare you. I say it because the cost of work isn't just paid while you're working, it's paid later, in your relationships, in your health, in your sense of purpose. The most painful realization for me was this. I thought I was building a life, but often I was just delaying it. I thought I was being responsible, but sometimes I was just afraid. Afraid to slow down, afraid to disappoint, afraid to choose myself. Work gave me a place to hide, and hiding feels safe until you realize what you're hiding from. If you're younger than I am now, you still have something incredibly valuable: choice. You can choose differently. You don't have to abandon ambition, but you do have to decide what it's serving. If your success costs you your health, your relationships, your peace, it's not success. It's a trade you'll regret later when there's nothing left to trade. I wish someone had told me this before my life got quiet, before silence forced me to listen.
There's a moment in life when time stops feeling abstract. For most of my years, time was just a number. Deadlines, ages, dates on a calendar. It didn't feel real. Then my body forced me to pay attention. The first serious warning came quietly: shortness of breath, chest tightness, fatigue that sleep didn't fix. I ignored it. Work trains you to ignore discomfort, to push through, to normalize pain. I told myself I was just tired. Everyone my age felt like this. That's another lie we learn early, that exhaustion is normal. It isn't. One afternoon, I collapsed in a grocery store parking lot. No dramatic music, no final speech, just the ground rushing up and people shouting my name. I woke up in a hospital room, machines beeping, tubes in my arms, and my wife sitting beside the bed, trying not to cry. The doctor didn't sugarcoat it. "You've been running on borrowed time," he said. "Your body has been warning you for years." Borrowed time. Those words stayed with me, because borrowed things must be returned. Lying there, unable to move, unable to check emails, unable to distract myself, I had nothing but thought. That's when I understood something terrifying. I had been spending my life as if time was a renewable resource. It isn't. Every year you borrow from your future self, every late night, every skipped rest, every postponed joy. Eventually, the bill comes due. I call it time debt. You can ignore it for years, but you always pay with interest. Health problems, broken relationships, missed experiences. I looked at my hands in that hospital bed and realized they were older than I felt inside. Your mind stays young. Your body keeps the score. That mismatch is jarring. You still think in terms of someday, but your body is already telling you how many days you actually have. The most frightening part wasn't the pain, it was the clarity. I realized that if I died then, my to-do list would vanish. Deadlines would be reassigned. Projects would continue without me. But the things I had postponed, they would simply never happen. No apology, no trip, no second chance. I thought about the conversations I had meant to have, the risks I avoided because they felt irresponsible, the dreams I labeled unrealistic. None of them had expiration dates on them, until suddenly everything did. Mortality changes your priorities brutally fast. Things that once felt urgent become irrelevant overnight. Things you kept postponing become unbearable to ignore. In that bed, I didn't miss work. I missed people. I missed my children's voices. I missed ordinary dinners. I missed quiet mornings. I missed moments I used to rush through because they weren't productive. When I was discharged, the world looked the same, but I wasn't. I started noticing how everyone around me was running the same race I had run. Faces glued to phones, always in a hurry, always stressed, living as if rest was something to be earned later. Later is not guaranteed. We act like death is a distant event, something that happens to other people. It isn't. It's happening slowly, every day, to all of us. That sounds dark, but it isn't meant to be. It's meant to be clarifying. When you understand that time is limited, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You stop pretending you'll do important things someday. You start asking better questions. Is this worth my energy? Is this worth my health? Is this worth another year of my life? I realized I had spent decades optimizing for a future that was never guaranteed. I was always preparing to live, never actually living. The hospital didn't give me wisdom, it gave me urgency. Urgency is a gift most people only receive when it's almost too late. I decided then that I wasn't going to die with a long list of intentions. I wasn't going to keep paying interest on time debt. That meant uncomfortable changes, saying no more often, letting go of expectations, accepting that some people would be disappointed, choosing life over appearance, health over status, presence over productivity. It felt selfish at first, but selfishness and self-preservation are not the same thing. You can't pour from an empty body. You can't show up fully when you're constantly depleted. I wish I had learned this lesson before my body forced it on me, before I had to see my own mortality reflected in hospital lights. You don't need a medical scare to change your relationship with time, but most people wait for one. Don't.
After the hospital, nothing changed overnight. That's another lie people believe, that clarity instantly fixes everything. It doesn't. Change is slow, awkward, uncomfortable, but it starts with awareness. For the first time in my life, I began asking a question I had avoided for decades. What actually matters if time is limited? Not what looks good, not what sounds impressive, not what earns approval. What matters when there's an end? The answers were painfully simple. People, health, presence, meaning. Not someday, now. I started small. I stopped rushing conversations. I stopped multitasking when someone was speaking. I started listening, not to respond, but to understand. At first, it felt inefficient. That's how deeply work had rewired my brain. But slowly, something changed. Moments felt fuller. Days felt longer. Life felt less like something to get through and more like something to experience. I called people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some conversations were awkward. Some were healing. Some came too late. That's another truth nobody prepares you for. Waiting closes doors quietly. Not every apology will be heard. Not every relationship can be repaired. But the regret of not trying is heavier than rejection. I began saying no to things that drained me, not because they were bad, but because they weren't aligned with the life I wanted. You don't realize how much of your time is spent maintaining expectations until you stop. Some people didn't understand. Some judged. Some drifted away. That's okay. Not everyone is meant to come with you into the next version of your life. I also forgave myself. That part took the longest. Regret can turn into self-punishment if you're not careful. I had to accept that I made choices with the awareness I had at the time. But acceptance doesn't mean repetition. Learning late is is still learning. The years after my health scare were not the easiest, but they were the most honest. I traveled, not to escape, but to experience. I spent time with my children without trying to teach or fix. I showed up. I said I love you more than I ever had before, not dramatically, not perfectly, consistently. I stopped treating rest as a reward and started treating it as a requirement. I moved my body gently. I ate slower. I slept without guilt. My life became smaller and richer. Here's the strange irony. When you stop chasing time, it feels like you have more of it because you're actually there for it. I'm not telling you to abandon ambition. Ambition isn't the enemy. Blind ambition is. If your goals cost you your health, your relationships, your peace, they're too expensive. No achievement is worth a life you don't recognize. You don't need to quit your job. You don't need to disappear into the mountains. You need to stop postponing what matters. Call the person you keep thinking about. Take the trip you keep delaying. Start the thing you keep waiting to feel ready for. You don't get ready first. You get ready by starting. One day, you will wake up and realize your life has already been lived by the choices you repeated. That day will come whether you're prepared or not. I'm older now. I don't know exactly how much time I have left. None of us do. But I wake up most mornings without the heaviness I used to carry. Not because everything is perfect, but because it's intentional. That makes all the difference. If I could speak to my younger self, I wouldn't lecture him. I would ask him one question. Who are you becoming with the way you're living today? Because days feel long, but years are short. And you don't lose your life all at once. You lose it in pieces you don't think matter until they're gone. If you're listening to this, you still have something priceless: choice. You can keep living the way you are, telling yourself you'll start later. Or you can decide that later is not guaranteed. The life you're waiting for is not in the future. It's in what you choose next. Not next year, not after this phase, not when things calm down. Now. Because one day you will be old enough to understand this, and I promise you, you don't want to be standing where I am, wishing you had started sooner. Don't work your whole life and realize too late that you forgot to live it. Time is passing. The question is simple. What are you going to do with it?